Hello, everyone, and a very warm welcome to you all. Thank you for joining us for today's Fractal webinar, The Future is COVID-19, the Ultimate Catalyst for Digital Transformation. I'm your host, Garima Beniwal. Before we start, just wanted to mention that this webinar is being recorded and will be available on demand on the Fractal website at fractal.ai. Attendees are currently in a listen-only mode. If you have any questions during the webinar, please send us a message via the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen and we'll address them during the Q&A session. It is my pleasure to now introduce our speakers. Rajesh Gopal. He is the Chief Information Officer at L'Oreal India. Rajesh joined L'Oreal in September 2019 and leads the digital transformation journey towards making L'Oreal a beauty tech company. Prior to this, he worked at Unilever for 14 years and played various roles in partnering business on IT. Rajesh is passionate about leveraging technology to bring in a competitive edge for the organization. Welcome, Rajesh. Ajay Gopalakrishnan. He is a Senior Director for Growth, CMI, and Business Intelligence at Sanofi Consumer Healthcare across Asia, Africa, Middle East, and Eurasia. In this role, Ajay is responsible for crafting the long-term growth strategy, as well as shaping consumer, healthcare professional, and market insights through the insights and business intelligence teams. Ajay brings in over 17 years of experience in the consumer goods and healthcare industries with P&G, Mead Johnson Nutrition, and now Sanofi. Welcome, Ajay.
Thanks, Garima.
Amitabh Bose. Ambo is a Chief Practice Officer at Fractal and leads Fractal's growth and stature to become the #1 global provider of digital transformation to the CPG and retail industries. He spent the early part of his career with P&G and PepsiCo. Post this, Ambo has been a part of the analytics industry for over 16 years now and played several roles from incubating and integrating startups to leading global analytics practices for publicly listed technology and business services firms working in the Americas, Europe, Pacific Asia, and Japan. Welcome, Ambo. Ambo, over to you to please get started.
Thank you, Garima. A very warm welcome, everyone, to this Fractal webinar series. Today, we are discussing COVID-19. Is that the ultimate catalyst for digital transformation in the consumer goods industry? I'm excited to have with me Rajesh and Ajay. Welcome, gentlemen, to the webinar today. The audience and I are looking forward to a very exciting conversation, drawing on your vast experience across CPG industry, across geographies and categories, in spaces of consumer shaping and long-term strategy. And of course, our shared passion for digital transformation. So thank you for joining me today, gentlemen.
Thank you.
As we get rolling, I thought we'd probably just check in on what has been any learning, experimentation, or hobbies we picked up during this time, or anything new we picked up during these times of work-life integration. Starting first with you, Rajesh.
Well, so first of all, thanks, Ambo, right? And good morning, good evening, everyone. So in terms of learnings, right? So I kind of gotten used to the lockdown, really. So online schooling is started for my kids the last 2 months. So I thought I will sit next to my son and help him with some of the answers. And I realized I failed miserably. So I'm not smarter than a 6th grader. Attending corporate meetings is a lot easier, right? Otherwise, I spend a lot of time, reviving my guitaring skills and stuff. So it's been good so far.
Wow, that's awesome talent. Thank you, Rajesh. And Ajay, how about you?
Well, for me, this period's been a period of introspection, right? And I thought of doing a reset, first by dropping a few kgs off, and then formalizing a lot of the analytics that I had picked up along the way with multiple certifications and things like that. So I just thought, it's good to do a reset at this point.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing. So very thoughtful, Ajay, and reflections. Creative genius there, Rajesh, including, taking the high steep path of learning, trying to teach a six-year-old, I guess. Comparatively, I've tried experimenting with facial hair. As you can see, it's been a disastrous result, so I've taken that off. Also, I tried my hand at cooking, again with disastrous results. So nothing great to share there from my side. So on that note, I think let's get on to the topic. So, okay, I think the CPG industry, the results have been out. The quarterly or year-ending results have been out over the last 4 weeks or so. Must say it's been a pretty good performance, I think, all across. I think we see some categories really outperform. The obvious ones like health, wellness, hygiene, and packaged foods and drinks. Some other categories such as gums and candies, for obvious reasons, and ready-to-drink beverages have faced their challenges. The China recovery is noteworthy, and I think in decades, for the first time, we've seen the US market perform growth. Indeed, Walmart, I believe, took up inventories up about 4% on the back of meeting the e-commerce demand. And I believe some strategic choices in taking up inventories in certain categories. And of course, if something like that happens, the industry obviously grows with it. What's fascinating personally to me is how our industry leadership in the consumer goods industry has kept the focus on our frontline team members, efficiently managing the demand and supply side and managing the cash flow well. So overall, great performance. And I guess that's the silver lining after all in these circumstances. Ajay, I'll start with your thoughts and with your background in consumer insights and consumer shaping. How do you think the consumers coped with COVID-19 over the past six months now, half a year? This psychological experiment. What are your thoughts on consumer?
Okay, so I mean, what all of us recognize is the toll of events is primarily on us as humans, right? So there's a health and economic impact. I won't talk as much about it, but rather focus on the mental and psychological outlook, okay? Again, all of us must remember, all of us are not the same. Each person is pretty unique, and hence there are different themes that have already played out, yeah? And as I talk through some of these themes, it might resonate for some of you as, hey, that's me in one of the themes, but on some others it will not be you because it's a different type of person in a very different context, right? But let me just talk through a few themes of how people have reacted, coped, and in some cases even thrived with it, right? So one of the first themes is you see a lot of people, and I won't say for consumers, but a lot of people starting to live or relive with a purpose, yeah? And that theme playing out also into the choices they make, yeah? So what that also means is when they start looking at consumer goods, and doesn't have to be consumer goods in the sense packaged goods, right? Any consumer goods is looking for more of a purpose in some of the choices they make, yeah? So a heightened sense of purpose is one big theme that's playing out. The second big theme is making the most of this new chance, right? And when I say that, I'm sort of speaking in gaming language. So just like I said earlier, doing a reset, right? So that is a theme that resonated well with me. Part of that we must remember is being driven by gratefulness, some of it by guilt, right? Either way, it leads to the outcome of a better me, right? Creating a better me and making the most of this new chance, right? That's a second theme. The third theme, which goes in a very different direction, is being extremely choiceful in your decisions because the environment has changed, the economic outlook, the job situation has all changed. Hence, as people look at our categories, there is a lot more of choiceful decision making coming through, which means that if you're a premium brand in a category that is good to have, that creates implications, right? Things like value reframing and all that. But as a theme, extremely choiceful in the decision making. The non-surprising things are like protection, prevention as a theme. It's become very obvious, but that theme will play out beyond sanitizers and cleaning products. It's already started playing out, right? And the last one, which I just want to leave all of us with, is something in a very different direction, but which has also started, which I would call in 1-2 words as revenge shopping. What revenge shopping is in countries where COVID is almost done and dusted. There are very few of them, but if I take those 2 or 3 countries, there is a bounce back response happening. Yeah, and then a good word for that is revenge shopping, which is like, I'm back to my norm. I'm back to the world that I missed, and I'm going to like blast my way through it, right? So it's revenge shopping. There are retailers, there are shopping malls that are seeing this play out in a very, very positive sense. Yeah. Over to you, Ambo. That's pretty much some themes.
Thanks for sharing. I'm sure we're going to come back to this topic and surely have some questions around. I love the way you phrase it, revenge shopping. And that's exciting to know. It's always the thing that we want in consumer goods, for the consumers to bounce back. But some great insights there. I think if we now look at on the supply side as consumer goods, and my question is for you, Rajesh, it seems like the unshackling of barriers for digital transformation. Do you think COVID-19 is proved to be the catalyst? We've all seen that illustration of the big hammer ball hitting people mulling over transformation. But do you think it's really happened now?
Sure, Amit, Ambo, just as I answer this, I like the term revenge shopping, because I could think of the Amazon delivery at my house almost every day, and I can associate with what you were talking about, Ajay, on revenge shopping. To your question, right? I think this WhatsApp forward that's been floating around that says who's responsible for digital transformation is the CIO, CDO, CMO, or COVID, right? As funny as it is, it's actually real. It's for real. But the key word is what you just said, right? It has accelerated things. It is not that it's brought out something entirely new. It's like, washing of hands is a good thing, right? It's always there. Just that now we are a little more disciplined, or a lot more disciplined about doing this. That's what I would call about on digital acceleration, right? And digital also, right, is a very graciously used term. So let me just clarify what I'm calling by digital, right? There is, an aspect of digital on how we connect with our consumers. There's an aspect of digital on how we connect with our customers. When I say customers, in our context, it's a distributor or a retailer. And then there's an aspect of digital on when it comes to internal ways of working, right? So what has happened in the last several months, right? It's actually touched all of these, and I'm going to emphasize more on the connect with the consumers, right? So if you look at some of the trends, and I'm not talking about India alone, I'm talking something global, right? Some of the spikes that we've seen on digital usage amongst our consumers, right? So the YouTube usage on watching videos has gone up by some 50%. Insta has gone up by some 70%. And closer to beauty, which is where L'Oreal plays in, the conversations on beauty has gone up by some 15%, right? So fantastic opportunity for us to connect with our consumers. And how do we do this digitally? We do it with tools like virtual try-on, right? We do it with things like skin diagnostics, right? And apart from the fact that it brings in the emphasis which is of contact lens in today's world, which becomes very important. There's also a great deal of personalization that these brings in, right? A virtual try-on, it suggests, or it helps the consumer look at how a lipstick shade is, for their hair color or eye color or a skin tone, right? Or a makeup that they're trying on. I think that's been fantastic, right? And there's a lot of video consultations that happen, right? With all the experts. A lot of people caught indoors, right? And I've seen that even with my wife. She in fact, she keeps suggesting the idea. She says, I have a query on beauty. Where do you go to? Because the parlors are closed, right? I think this entire area of live streaming, entire area of video consultation, right? That is definitely improved or accelerated. This is a lot to do with the connect with the consumers, right? If I talk about on the customers or how we do our sales right? In India, just to give a context, right? While e-commerce is growing phenomenally, the general trade also has a significant part. In fact, the general trade or traditional trade, as we call it, has been very resilient during these times, right? But then even there, we want to see how to make it contactless, right? How to make it more efficient or digital for the people out there on the on the sales force. Here is where something like a retail ordering, where the shop, the retailers are able to order with a with an app very similar to what you do with an with an Amazon, right? That's become very popular. We have seen a lot of organizations tie up with companies like Dunzo, which is like the Swiggy's, which is like the Uber Eats. If people are not familiar with these terms within India, right? For the last mile delivery, right? And that has helped a great deal. And then whatever system integration is required from the back end, all of that is done, right? And specific to L'Oreal, and could be applicable in a lot of other organizations as well, is one of our key business models is about imparting trainings to the stylists in the salons, right? Or what we call as beauty advisors. We've been able to create a digital ecosystem where these trainings are actually done virtually, something which was, I would say, unheard of earlier, although we did it in pockets, right? So those are things that we've done. And of course, before this started, people never thought you can work virtually. Office is the only place where you can work from, right? So I think it's really accelerated, right? And to sum it up, right, it's like the last few months have been like what you call as the death overs or the final few overs in cricket, right? Where you're accelerating on the runs, right? So I'm sorry, I know some of the audiences outside of India might not be familiar with cricket, but I'm from India and I have to bring it up. So look at it as a huge spike in the number of home runs that you hit towards the later part of the innings. So that's what's been with in the last few months with COVID.
Thank you, Rajesh. I think that was very nicely put in terms of consumer, customer, and ways of working. And what you just so seamlessly covered, it's kind of been like a 5-year strategic plan for the CIO organization, and year after year, that's what been laid out. But somehow it's never come out so smoothly, right? Okay, in-store consultants are not available in beauty. Suddenly you have it through a digital ecosystem or an app. Those things are like, they're typically people plan it as a wish list or creating that personalization with different shades of skin color or lipstick or color cosmetics it was always this long envisioned thing. What do you think were some of the barriers which are holding us back and which have changed now in our ways of thinking?
Yeah, I will keep it simple, right? I think it's a couple of things, right? One of it is the mindset, right? As while it's simply put, it's a big factor in it. And I'll give you an example on this. Sometime recently, of course, before the COVID thing, I attended a conference, something on digital transformation, and some elite panel. A lot of people were talking about what they are doing different on digital transformation, how they are, bringing in a digital transformation, what is different, and things like that. They spoke some great things. And then lastly, there was this guy who was a kid who started a fantastic startup. And he said, with all humility, he said, I hear you all, but to be honest, I don't understand a lot of these because we don't know any other way. We only know digital. I love that answer. And he was being very humble about it, right? So for a lot of us, right, it's about becoming digital. We're not digitally native. And hence there's a mindset thing. And that's huge, right? Secondly, right, it's, I'm sure a lot of you would have heard this term, new normal. I don't know what you guys think. I have gotten bored of that term. I've gotten annoyed and tired of that term, a new normal. Because in my mind, I'm not clear. Is everything going to change? Is it going to change for a while? For instance, I'm hoping not that we don't wear masks all the time for eternity, right? So, but there are some things that will change maybe for a while and then change back, right? So in such circumstances, when you don't know what's going to be permanent, you need to be prepared to experiment. You need to be agile, you experiment, figure out if it's going to be permanent, or if it's not, shut shop, go back and change or maybe tweak, right? For me, these two things are absolutely important, right? The big barriers. Lastly, again, I'm making it as from an India context, it's applicable across for countries in APAC, maybe Africa as well. The infrastructure might not support digital in every part of the country, in India or many other places, right? And hence, maybe digital and non-digital, or maybe analog, if you want to call it, might have to coexist for a while, right? So that's how I see it, and these are some of the barriers I can think of over to you, Ambo.
Thanks for sharing. I think, yeah, digital native and at least I am not, and quite a few of my peers are not, but it's actually the way of thinking. It's a different way to think about things. And it goes way beyond speaking, but actually trying out and doing. I think that's the mindset the industry is demonstrating now, and actually with great effects. Question for you, Ajay, and I think the sun is, when we're looking at these categories, people are talking of 5-year, 10-year acceleration in e-commerce and digital buying. Are some categories better set for it? We do see in some of the quarterly results, some companies reshaping portfolios, of changing it, and in fact going for broke. We've seen people talk about, CEOs talk about actually COVID portfolio and non-COVID portfolios. What's your view on maybe categories and markets where we see some significant acceleration predicted?
Yeah, so there are, I think to start with, every category is hoping that there are opportunities for them, right? But some of them has already become very evident. But I'll start with the most evident one, which is hygiene and cleaning. That's on the table, and given there's been a habit change, it will stick for longer, right? Because the penetration levels have gone up. Right? Now, one step further away from that, but what has also become strong is categories related to immunity and by extension going into wellness and self-care. Okay, so the immunity theme, I don't think we should think about it as a category because the consumer doesn't think of it as a category. Different ways of protecting yourself, right? That is a message, and that is a proposition that will resonate across many categories, right? That category may be more, that theme may be more established today in a nutritional context, but it is just left to the imagination on which other categories can tag on to it, right? So in a consumer health context, there are some other categories which I won't name, but which are already tagging on to the immunity theme and playing it out. Then if you think one more step away is primarily related to stress and sleep. Yeah. There were some statistics that showed that people with cracked teeth, so people biting into their teeth at night and have a higher level of stress and concern, and in spite having all the time having more sleepless or disturbed sleep is also themes that are playing out in fairly established categories, right? And when you think self-care, yes, it's playing out in consumer goods, but it's also playing out in consumer-driven digital subscriptions and a lot of digital services, right? So if you look at how I was talking about it, at the easiest one that's already evident for almost all of us, literally 99.99, is hygiene and cleaning, right? Maybe what's evident to about 80% of us, and I'm guessing almost everyone in this call, definitely is this need for immunity and protection that's already built, right? So some of you may have never used a vitamin C product before, but you've started using it. A lot others have suddenly started feeling that a vitamin C is not sufficient. I need to inject immunity into my normal food that I eat, right? So that has played out into packaged food, right? A lot of us, in spite of having the time, have had much more of digital interaction and much more disturbed sleep. And we've become more aware of it because of the fitness trackers that we've been wearing, and suddenly sleep has come up as a problem to solve, right? So those are some of the things that have definitely played out at this point, and that have already played out, right? Now, when you look forward, think of it as a fork, right? On one side, as I said earlier, there were people who were making very conscious decisions, very choiceful, very thought through decisions. For people in that subset, prioritizing their kids over themselves is a choice that will play out. So in many categories, you will already start seeing the kids side of the portfolio doing better, right? and it will come at the cost of others, right? And the more good to have that category is, the more that will become very evident. Yeah. So I said it's a fork, because on one side you have people making those choices. On the other side, we'll start seeing categories where people start self-rewarding themselves, because they have been through this journey of panic, then a sort of depression, and now some stage of recovery. And that recovery has already, like I said, there was a revenge shopping earlier, but there's also self-rewards, making yourself feel good, which then means some of categories like chocolates, which were beaten down a lot because the impulse buy wasn't there. Well, this theme starts playing out there, yeah. But that's from a category acceleration. If you think from an e-commerce standpoint, the magic about e-commerce is e-commerce pretty much shapes itself around demand, right? And given the way it's done it so successfully so far, when you see some of the themes that I talked about earlier, like wellness, self-care, sleep, all of those demand spaces becoming very evident, e-commerce will drive its way and find a way of fulfilling it, right? So that's the side of e-commerce of how these categories will get access. But then it's primarily driven by where demand will just show up.
Thanks, Rajesh, for sharing. I mean, I totally love that thing that e-commerce is able to fulfill the demand as it shapes. Thank you, Ajay, for that. Rajesh, that question for you, and Ajay talked on a lot of categories of preservation, care, immunization, and then he's talking of teeth. And I realize that's the one gem that we have in our Zoom calls when we are doing these calls. What's your experience with beauty? And you've worked in both mass and now prestige. So what's been the learning with beauty?
Sure, Ambo. So all the points that Ajay mentioned, a lot of them rather is of course applicable for us. But if I were to make it specific to beauty, right, we've seen a nice uptrend on hair color and hair care. After a point, even with Zoom calls, obviously people want to look pretty, right? And there is a nice uptrend on skin, right? Focus being more on the healthier part of things, right? The points that Ajay was mentioning. One place where we have seen a dip is on makeup, understandably so, because it's less of socializing these days, right? But even there, whatever makeup is there, the focus is more about breathable or healthier makeup, wearing a makeup, right? And the other couple of things that we have seen is the huge emphasis on something which is homemade or natural, right? Even with beauty products, right? And then the do-it-yourself, right? That is becoming increasingly popular because people are also, sometimes some are bored. They also want to experiment things, and they also don't want to venture out, right? So those are things from a beauty context.
Thanks for sharing. Yeah, I think I also see the other trend, and it's kind of buzzing in social, is bringing your true self to these calls, and to your point on more healthy beauty, doing good for yourself, good for your skin, and being the way you are rather than put on that face. I think that's the other big change. That's kind of I see the trend. The other one I definitely want to pick your thoughts on, Rajesh, is learnings from China in this space, and it's like it's a market probably where we are seeing some degree of revenge shopping, and a massive amount of acceleration around e-commerce. So, what can the world learn from the rest of the world learn from China? If you may want to share some.
Sure, Ambo. So China has been phenomenal on digital, right? The more I learn about it, the more fascinating I find it. Just 2-3 macro level points and trends before making it specific, right? The China users are typically more digitally savvy, and that's coming in because of the one-child policy that came in sometime in 1980. So what they realized, that generation realized they were in a way alone, right? And they didn't have a lot of cousins, and they looked at the internet for socializing. So that naturally came to them, right? Because of the policy itself, right? Then there were these tech giants that were established, right? Alibaba and Tencent is an example. They kind of shook the world with respect to what they did. And in China, and I've seen this as unique as against other countries, right? The social platform, right, is not specific to the young crowd. It's not specific to the big cities. You have social platforms across age groups, and you also have social platforms quite busy with small town people, right? Which is kind of unique for China. And the other larger trend is in China, right? They choose convenience over privacy, right? It's a debatable point. I'm not getting over that, but China chooses convenience over privacy, right? So these are the larger macro trends that happen, right? And to give a couple of things very specific which make China unique on digital, right? And China, by the way, on beauty is expected to grow some 40 times by 2030 and expected to be the #1 country for beauty, right? Let me give a couple of things about China, which is, I think, fantastic, right? The single day sales, I'm sure all of us have heard about it. I mean, they have different events, November 11, Women's Day, Father's Day, and they hit record-breaking numbers out there, right? And Tmall, right, which is actually the Alibaba-owned one, they have a very interesting thing. They actually have car buying, for instance, in China used to be very complex. You can't even test drive a car, but people love buying cars in China. Tmall introduced a vending machine kind of a thing for car buying. So you go up there, you do the payment, you select, the car is out, you drive it out, right? And if you like the car, you make the payment after 3 days. So it's like, you buying a Coke. It's something as seamless, right? And the way Alipay works, right? It's like an example that I give is, I have a nice store in my apartment complex, right? I walk in there, the guy knows me, I pick up what I want and I just walk out. I don't have to, stand in a line, make a payment and things like that. I just show the product and I walk out. So the way Alipay works in China, you smile and you're paying, right? So that's the other aspect. Perhaps the biggest of all is how they have used what you call as influencers, right? So China has this concept of influencers or a KLO, where you have these people in social platforms. There are celebrities, there are these experts, right? If it's a beauty product, they will come and tell you, you know what, this product, go buy it. And there are examples where in 15 seconds, some 15,000 products have been sold. That's done really, really well. So these are things top of my mind on this, yeah.
That's fantastic. Yeah, we see Walmart join up Oracle to take a stake in TikTok, and because of live streaming, that's a new thing that's coming in from China. That's fantastic, and we are near the moment where we have some questions now coming in. So I'm going to pose this out. We've got the first one from Gautam, and his question. He's got a couple of questions. The first one is, how will data and analytics help consumer goods adapt to these changes due to consumer behavior and category choices? I'd love to hear your folks. How can data and analytics help CPGs adapt to the changes in consumer behavior and category choices by consumers? Ajay, you want to go?
Yeah, I can go. So that's a real life challenge, right? And it's a challenge. So there's a business challenge, right? Which is it is an uncertain environment, and there is not much of benchmarks or much of experiences to guide you, which then means as companies have invested a lot on data and analytics, right? And now, so it's the fertile territory for an analytics organization to build and demonstrate a use case, right? Yet what you will start realizing is the use cases will themselves be handicapped because they will show you the light maybe up to 60-65%, right? It will tell you that it will tell you what kind of growth rates or which categories the direction the categories will go. However, what the business situation still demands is a little bit more than a range, right? More than a direction. So if I just put an example, right? I talked of different themes, using data and analytics and even much more tighter measurement. It's possible to say, yes, the sleep category, as an example, is going to go double digits. because of so much, a certain number of people coming into the category, and it's easy to paint a picture, right? And that's where the data and analytics investments will show light, but will show light maybe up to 65% of the journey. And from there on, measurement becomes more important because you can't throw light on it, but as you take every step, you start getting some response, some feedback that allows you to say, okay, since I've taken 2 steps, or since I've put in $500,000 of investment, does it look strong enough that I put in another 3 million of investment, right? Or do I put in another half? So that's that's the game the data and analytics organization now plays, which is paint a picture using numbers, using past experiences, but then as you make the decisions, go much more heavier on measurement.
Thanks for sharing. Yeah, it's like experiment and build off. And Rajesh, from your experience, and we've seen China, which is almost like a platform. There's several platforms being built around consumer connect or customer connect, or even ways of working. From your experience, how can the technology come together to enable this? Almost like creating the APIs of the interconnected business to work with this ecosystem.
Sure. So let me give an example, both touching upon your point and the question on data and analytics, right? So if I have a query these days, the last several months, right? You typically ask in a WhatsApp group, right? A known set of friends, what's the laptop to buy? But if something more specific to say what UPS would be good for a router, I don't trust my friends. I go for a apartment complex. I ask the question, right? So what I'm trying to say is the concept of engaging, talking to people within a community, or talking to an expert to understand about a product, understand about an area, and then buying is becoming popular. And that's what is now being called, in a way, in a very expanded way, as social commerce, right? So what it basically means is, get your consumers, you have your consumers on a social platform, have the experts, in our case, it's beauty, right? Have a conversation with them, right? Understanding what they are trying to do and helping them on what's the right product for them, right? And once they see the need, they do the commerce, right? Which is basically the purchasing of it, and then of course the delivery of it, right? From a technology standpoint, what I've just explained, right, is, and I'll try not to be very technical about it, it's actually different applications. There's one application on a social platform. There is one which is about the conversation, which could happen on a WhatsApp or some other chat medium, and then one about the commerce, right? So all these are interconnected through what we call as APIs, or gateways, right? So that for the consumer, it's a seamless way by which he or she travels around, right? So that's what is becoming very, very popular. And the reason I also connected it to the question on data analytics is, now is an opportunity to get a fantastic repertoire of all the conversations that people are having with your consumers, right? The experts are having. And you can use this to actually start innovating. What are the queries that come up? What is it that they like about a product? What is it that they don't like about a product? What are the kind of questions that they're asking, right? That's the latest trend I see, and social commerce I can see is, it's a big thing in more so in the APAC part of the world. Over to you, Ambo.
Fantastic. Thanks for sharing. The other questions coming in is around direct to consumer, and what does that model look like? And I think tied to that are questions around consumer path to purchase, major changes that we are seeing, and what can companies think and do.
Okay, so I can take the Ambo if you want, yeah. So yeah, so has the consumer path to purchase changed? Yes. How has it changed? Now, there are different parts of the path to purchase, right? There is this part on searching, finding the best product for me, understanding if it works, and comparison. If you look at all of those stages, in some categories, as expected, especially as some of the categories I talked about earlier, there is no longer a lot of comparison. It's pretty much which of these is available now and what can I get now, right? Especially if those are categories which are getting accelerated. And just for all of us to make that real is think of vitamin C, okay? How have most of us in this call reacted to getting vitamin C in your hands in the last 3 months? And also think of, you most probably did not go and buy 1 tube of vitamin C. You probably got like half a dozen or something, right? So the path to purchase for some categories have definitely got accelerated. What has also happened is in many categories, the volume of content that's coming on reviews have also gone up. Why? Because on one hand, people have a lot of time. On the second hand, as they try certain products, they have also started linking it back to, does it resonate with them? Not just efficacy, but is this a product that fits with my lifestyle, with my purpose, and build reviews and content around that, right? So yeah, that's a short answer.
Thanks for that, Ajay. Rajesh, in terms of direct to consumer, and this is a question coming up with regards to how companies do the revenue management. How do we plan brands for direct to consumer versus brands for, let's say, third party e-commerce versus in your business, you have so many channels. I know travel retail right now is what is a big bet, and it's not really active as it used to be. But think of drugstore to general merchandise store to departmentals to third-party e-commerce such as Alibaba or Amazon, and then direct to consumer. How would we think of the brands and which one for which channel with what kind of pricing?
Sure. There's no simple answer to it, Ambo. I'll start with that, and I'll put across 2-3 points on this, right? One, be absolutely clear about the strategic positioning of D2C. Right? Why do you as an organization want to go on D2C, especially considering that there could be other e-commerce players out there, right? So where does this position itself? That's point number one. Point number two, right? I don't believe all the brands should be made for a D2C. There are some brands with certain amount of uniqueness and the customer value proposition that is offers is better suited for a D2C kind of a model, right? So look at it from that angle as well, right? Multi-brand does not always work. You might want to pick and choose, the ones that you want to go into the D2C journey. Thirdly, right, there are different parts to this D2C. There's a part about customer acquisition, right? Getting them in, great content, video collaboration, and all of that I said, right? And then retention or stickiness, which is very, very difficult, right? Why will they stick around after the first visit, right? Do you have a compelling platform? Do you have a compelling proposition to ensure retention or stickiness? Where is it that, here the geography part of it comes into play, right? Where is it that you can do this? Where is it you can't? Right? So these are the things that, that come to my mind on this.
Very, 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 very helpful. And I'm glad you brought in fulfillment. We have some questions coming in. There is, of course, Garima is telling me this can be the last question we can take. So let me just put it there on fulfillment. I think there's a question around, it's highlighted that many CPG companies are, have experienced or for the first time come face to face with the vulnerability of their global supply chains and their relationships to global shocks. How will the transition from a traditional linear supply chain model to digital supply chain networks affect the end-to-end visibility for consumer companies? And either of you gentlemen, this is unfortunately, fortunately, audience, this is the last question we can take, but I'll leave it open to the panel here.
I'm happy to pick that up. I'll just land you with 2 points, and I'll give you a simple answer that it's going to phenomenally transform. And why am I saying that? There are 2 points out here, right? One, with respect to when the COVID hit us, right, and we had to stop things. The immediate question in people's mind was, where are the stocks lying? Where are those trucks lying, right? And especially remember in India, and it's a case with many of the other countries, right, which have these state boundaries. You're allowed to be in one place, not allowed to be in the other, right? So the visibility in a lot of organizations were found lacking, and that was absolutely required, right? And number two, everyone keeps talking about e-commerce boom, which we've seen across industries. But for any boom, you had to forecast for it. And the traditional ways of forecasting was not helping, right? And here is where, a lot of places, I think what we could do with ML as an ability to forecast has become increasingly popular on e-commerce. It's easier said than done, right? It doesn't mean that, you just apply an ML and it throws a great forecast, but organizations have realized there is merit in using that, right? So I just want to land with these 2 points, right? And the simple answer to the question is, it's going to phenomenally change how people are going to look at supply chain.
Thank you, Rajesh. I think we are on time with this. Thank you, Ajay. Thank you, Rajesh. Very exciting, very new learnings for me personally, and I'm sure for our audience. Thank you so much. It's been wonderful and exciting, and looking forward to what we can create with the situation we have at hand. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Ambo. Thank you, Ajay.
Thank you,
Thank you,
our
Thanks,
speakers.
everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Rajesh, Ajay, and Ambo, for these interesting insights and sharing your perspective. And we also want to thank our audience for all of your participation and spending time with us today. We do have a request on your way out. If you could take a moment to share your feedback on the webinar through the quick survey posted in the chat box, we would really appreciate your response. Thank you, everyone, and have a good day ahead. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, folks. Bye-bye.